One of my favorite parts of any video game is exploring the beautiful and creative worlds where the games take place. I love getting lost in the world building and becoming so familiar with the landscape that it almost feels like a second home. Spending time in these sorts of locations is so much fun, and it's what really connects me to certain games. Nintendo games are always full of imagination and creativity, meaning there's a whole bunch of fantastic locations across their vast library of games. I've talked about some of my favorite locations in the Legend of Zelda series specifically, but now I'm opening up the doors to any location from any Nintendo game. Of course, that means there's a lot to choose from, and I won't be able to cover every single memorable Nintendo location since there's so many. But I do want to talk about some of the highlights for me personally. So today I'll be sharing with you some of my favorite locations in Nintendo games. Let's start with the mascot of Nintendo himself, Mario. One of his best games, Super Mario Odyssey, is all about traveling to many different diverse locations. Of course, there's iconic places like New Donk City, Fossil Falls, and Peach's Castle. But one of my favorite locations in the game is a slightly less popular pick, the Snow Kingdom. When you first arrive, you're stuck in the middle of a huge blizzard, and you can't see very far into the distance. After exploring for a while, you'll eventually reach this pile of snow, where you can hear some faint sleigh bells coming from below. Clearing up the snow reveals a huge hole in the ground, and once you jump in, you'll arrive in Shiveria Town, one of the coziest locations in any Nintendo game. Here's a short description of this place in the Snow Kingdom brochure. Shiveria is a huge excavated settlement beneath the ice. It's warmer here than up above, but you'll want to bundle up all the same. Despite the cold, the cheerful Shiverians will thaw any traveler's frozen heart. Another one of my favorite locations from a 3D Mario game is the hub world for Super Mario Galaxy, the Comet Observatory. You'll spend a lot of time here over the course of the game, with more and more of it unlocking as you progress. At first things are pretty slow and lifeless, but as you collect more power stars, things start to open up and get more exciting. By the end of the game, this place is full of characters from your adventure, Lumas flying around all over the place, and so much to explore. You wouldn't think Mario and a space station would go well together, but it ends up being one of my favorite hub worlds of all time. I also have a ton of nostalgia for this place, which is probably why it means so much to me. I've spent countless hours running around the Comet Observatory, and it'll always hold a special place in my heart. You guys are probably sick of hearing me talk about Wuhu Island at this point, but I'm going to include it anyway because this place will always be one of my favorite Nintendo locations of all time. The idea to put all the sports from Wii Sports Resort onto one tropical island is a genius decision that improves the game so much. Whether you're playing basketball in Wuhu Town, ping pong at the Kokoba Hotel, or just flying around the island in a plane, this place has so much personality and charm packed into its design. If we're talking about video game locations that feel like a second home, Wuhu Island is at the very top of my list. If this was a real place you could live, I'd be packing my bags right now. And while I'm disappointed it isn't making a return in Nintendo Switch Sports, the brand new location for that game, Spoko Square, seems to have a lot of attention to detail as well. But sadly it'll never be able to live up to Wuhu Island. Now I know I've already made an entire video discussing my favorite locations in The Legend of Zelda, but I have to talk about a few more. One of the best side quests in Breath of the Wild involves building an entire town from scratch, and inviting people from all over Hyrule to live there. Once Tarrey Town is completed, it's a sight to behold. It really makes you feel accomplished since you helped build the town yourself and brought everyone together. Seeing this place go from a pile of rocks to a small and happy community is so great. This town feels so warm and welcoming, even though there's cliffs on all sides. By the way, I have no idea how this bridge into town isn't collapsing. Maybe physics work differently in Hyrule. And the wedding ceremony that takes place in the center of town is so wholesome, and it's the perfect way to end this amazing side quest. Skyward Sword has a beautiful watercolor visual style, and I think one of the best examples of this is the Sealed Temple. This decayed temple overgrown with plant life is just gorgeous, and then you throw in some sunbeams coming in through the ceiling and it basically becomes a moving painting. And later on, once the Gate of Time is added, it somehow becomes even more beautiful. I loved revisiting this location throughout Link's adventure, and it's the perfect place for the Master Sword to sleep forever. The music creates an amazing sense of atmosphere too, like you're walking into an ancient sacred place that still holds its sense of importance all these years later. Animal Crossing games are a little tough with this topic because everyone's town is so different and personalized. So I can say that my island from New Horizons is one of my favorite locations, but that doesn't really mean anything to you because you don't know what I'm talking about specifically. So instead I'm going to go with kind of a weird pick, Sailing the Sea with Cap'n. I don't know if this really counts as a location, but this is my video so I get to make the rules and I say it counts. Riding on the back of Cap'n's boat while he sings you a song about life is some top tier video game stuff. This started all the way back on the GameCube, and they also included it in the final update for New Horizons. Cap'n's lyrics are just the best, and it's a great example of the journey being better than the destination. Pokemon Legends Arceus released recently, and it already made it into this video because of its hub world, Jubilife Village. This small settlement on the west coast of the Hisui region has a super cool visual style that gives it a really unique feel. Pokemon games are usually set in pretty modern and city-like worlds, so it's really interesting to explore the distant past of the Sinnoh region. The clothing style is totally different, feeling more like a Zelda game, which I love. There's this giant headquarters building in the center where you report your findings, your own personal private quarters where you can relax, the pastures where your unused Pokemon stay, and there's a river that runs through the whole town. I love this location already, even though I haven't even beaten the game yet. It just has such a memorable layout and distinct vibe. The world of Xenoblade Chronicles is absolutely massive, with so many great locations to choose from. There's the insanely iconic Gaur Plains, which is probably the most recognizable place from this game. I also love Shulk's hometown Colony 9, which is the perfect place to begin this epic adventure. But the one that impressed me the most was Satoral Marsh. When I first got to this part of the game, I was pretty disappointed with how bland it looked. During the day this place is actually pretty ugly, but then nightfall came and this happened. I was totally blown away by the transformation of this place. Suddenly what used to be a boring location turned into one of the most beautiful I'd ever seen. I just stopped playing for a while and tried to take in my stunning surroundings while in this breathtaking area. Splatoon has a ton of great online maps that stand out in my mind like Moray Towers, Arowana Mall, Manta Maria, and so many more. But for this video I'll have to go with the Deep Sea Metro subway car from the Splatoon 2 Octo expansion. This dark and cramped location lets you get up close and personal to the denizens of the deep, which is what these strange things are actually called. The types of weird passengers change every time you come here, except for Captain Cuttlefish, CQ, and this big guy named Iso Padre. The color of light coming through the windows even changes each time too. To me, this is Splatoon at its best, when it embraces its weirdness and runs with it. It's also a good example that a location doesn't have to be huge to be memorable. Going back to Mario for a bit, there's so many awesome locations in the Mario Kart series. Coconut Mall, Waluigi Pinball, Wild Woods, and Electrodome are all fantastic tracks, but one that has always stood out to me is Dragon Driftway. This track makes great use of Mario Kart 8's anti-gravity mechanics as you race all over the twisting body of the dragon. The Japanese-inspired visuals look terrific. This track has always been one of my favorites in the whole game. And in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe there's a battle arena with the same aesthetic, called Dragon Palace, and this place is amazing too. Both share similar music tracks, combining traditional Japanese instruments with rock guitars, and it works perfectly. The 2D Metroid games have a ton of impressive and memorable locations, but one of my favorites is Ferenia from Metroid Dread. This sacred Chozo Palace has some really cool visuals. The sense of scale is huge, and I love the red carpet throughout the area. There's also a sense of fear throughout the whole place because it seems to be abandoned, and is now overrun by monsters. But it's clear that it was a bustling city at one point. I'm sure the Metroid Prime games have some incredible locations as well, but I still haven't gotten around to playing those just yet. So for now, Ferenia is my favorite location in the Metroid series, even though it's full of some pretty difficult enemies. Okay, I've covered a lot of locations so far, so I'll just do one more to wrap this up. The main plaza area in Nintendo Land is so colorful and full of fun details that I enjoy just walking around and taking in the sights. In case it isn't clear by this point, I love a good hub world, and Nintendo Land's plaza is exactly that. As you play attractions, you unlock extra decorations for the plaza, and by the end it's just bursting with color and positive energy. It's so awesome to see so many different Nintendo franchises represented in one place. You can also change the time of day, which they totally didn't have to include, but I'm so glad they did. And when Miiverse was still up and running, you could walk around and see tons of different posts from other Miis in your plaza. Before Super Nintendo World was announced, this was as close as we got to a Nintendo theme park. And that's some of my favorite Nintendo locations. There are even more that I could talk about, like different areas in the Luigi's Mansion games, Mario Party boards, Pikmin and Donkey Kong Country levels, but then we'd be here all day. Remember that all of this is just my opinion, so be sure to share your favorite Nintendo locations in the comments below. Exploring fun places will always be one of my favorite parts of any video game, and I'm grateful to the hardworking people who created these incredible worlds. And that's all I've got for this one, so thanks for watching guys, and I'll see ya in the next one.